So thank you so much. Bienvenue à notre session. Moi, je l'aurais fait en français, mais voilà, c'est sa faute. Donc, now we are going to switch to English. So thank you so much for coming to our talk. Today we are going to be speaking about how we can master in Salesforce global rollouts. Okay. So my name is Laura Diaz. I'm a senior CRM and retail application senior manager. I need to change to look because I just recently changed position. Anyway, at Brightline, I am a former Salesforce MVP, Dreamolake organizer. I've been like more than 10 years into consulting. I've done quite a lot of global rollouts over the years. So I'm gonna come here and tell you a bit of our experience and the things we have learned along the work. So those are my contact details. So just in case you want to reach out, please feel free to do so.
And my name is Julio Fernández. I am a Salesforce applications developer at Designit, where I've been working with the Salesforce platform for about 10 years now. I was also a Salesforce MVP a few years ago, and I'm still quite involved with the community. That's why I come to these type of conferences, and we organize Dreamolake in Spain, and with some other people, and these are my contact details as well, in case you want to reach out later. This is a bit of what we are going to see today. We're going to start with a simple definition of what a global rollout is, and we're going to talk about different phases. So starting with analysis and planning, a bit about the implementation phases, data migrations and integrations, and we'll finish with some talk about training and post-go live. So let's start with a simple definition. What is a global rollout? So a simple definition for a rollout is the introduction of a new product or the integration of new processes and systems into existing ones. And when you introduce the international variable, that makes it global. If you add a number of markets, that makes it global. And that's a very simple definition, but it is what it is. And we're going to check a few of the phases that you would typically have in a global rollout. So we're going to talk about the as-is phase. So this is where you start checking the state of the art. So what you have in the current project and what are the different sections in the business that you're going to have to talk to. We will carry on talking about what the blueprint is, defining the blueprint. You can think about the blueprint as a template that is going to be shared by most of the markets, or at least a few of them. And then we will talk about the deviations. Some of the markets are very standard, and you can reuse most of the work for all of the markets, but some other markets have particularities that you have to focus on, so those are the deviations. Then we will carry on with talking about the implementation and the differences between the blueprint and the deviations. We'll talk about data migration and systems integrations. To carry on with testing, because it's a very important phase where we have to check that everything works as expected. And finally, go live and post-go live.
All right. Okay. So choosing, there are several ways of actually doing strategies to roll out your products or your developments, right? So we have split it into three. There is no best strategy than the other, right? It all will depend on your team, on the business needs, on the different types of markets that you are going to roll out, okay? So choosing one or the other, it's really dependent on what you want to achieve and the resources you have. So the first strategy would be more where you actually choose only one market. You just analyze all the processes and define the business template, okay? Hello. Well, anyway, I keep talking. So you just define the template, the global template, just based on that very simple, that very one market, okay? You just roll it out to the rest of the world. And this is just good for very small a small kind of like rollouts where there are not many deviations or differences between the different markets that you are going to roll out. The good advantage of that type of rollout is obviously that once you have built the global template, you just go like in a kind of a factory. You just roll out one market, another, and you just are done, right? You don't have to invest more time into actually developing different things for different markets, okay? One of the disadvantages actually is that the pilot might be very, very limited in scope, and when you go actually to roll out to a different market, you may be missing very important features that these people need to have, okay? The second strategy is a bit more wider, where you actually, instead of just choosing one market to actually build the template, the blueprint, you are gonna choose like 2 or 3, right? So one example is we did a global rollout based on 3 markets. So we took the US, we took the UK, and we took Singapore. So it gives you a kind of like a broader scope or processes, and your blueprint is gonna be actually bigger, and you're gonna be covering a bit more kind of like deviations, all right? So that is good for some of those kind of like rollouts which involve a bit more of differences between each other. And of course, the good thing about it is that still you're going to roll out the same template that you did for the 3 markets. This template is a bit more broader, and you're going to be covering a bit more use cases that you might not be only covering with one market. But of course, when still you are maybe not covering everything that you need, and the template might be a bit too big for one market, right? Because you might be implementing features that were needed in Singapore, in the US, when you don't need them in the US, okay? The third strategy is probably like the more complete, but you don't always have the resources or time to do it, okay? It's really based on stepping back, saying, okay, I need to roll out. So first, I'm going to analyze what are the different processes, systems, how the people work in the different markets, okay? So you take the time to go do interviews, to do analysis, to try to understand where are the different ways of working these people have. And then once you have this, you are going to build a common global blueprint, either based on the similarities, but also you may also take some of the differences and say, that difference that they are doing in Morocco, it's amazing. We are going to use it to all the rest of the world, because that's a good thing that we can implement on other places, okay? So you need to kind of really, it's based on the work of a business analyst, really taking the time to analyze, okay? One of them, that's really good for large rollouts, in which, for instance, it's a very good use case when you are going to retail, right? So you have like a brand that sells in different countries around the world. When it comes to regulations about fiscality, how to handle money, how to declare, and so on, it's not the same rolling out in Italy, where they have a very strict process, etc., than rolling out maybe in Spain or in the US or anything, okay? So the good things about it is obviously that your template is going to be very well constructed probably. You are going to, since the beginning, identify where are those differences, right? But of course, you're going to need like a lot of time and resources to analyze all the things, all the processes beforehand. And also, usually you are going to build a template, and then you are going to have to also build the kind of deviation. So obviously requires more time and resources that you don't always have, okay? So here we just wanted to present like a kind of a framework or kind of activities that you could do when you actually go to roll out to a market, right? So we have divided into streams. So we are having the first stream, that is the executive engagement. So the first thing you want to do is to really get the engagement from the executives in the different markets, so that then supports you. Without the proper support from the leaders, the rollout is not going to work, right? Because they are going to like put you troubles. They are not going to give you what you need. They are not going to find the time to make the rollout, okay? Then the second part is the design part, because when you do the analysis of all the processes that you are doing, it's usually very high level, because if you need to go down deep level, you will not have the time. So you still need to find time to go into details of where are the fields, where are the processes, where are the escalation rules, where are the different types of persons that are going to be working with the system, okay? Then the third stream is the data. So the data is extremely important, and you need to understand already, my gosh, you need to understand how the different things that without a proper data system is totally useless, okay? So if they had data, everybody has data, either whether it was in an Excel file or it was somewhere in paper, they do have some data. So you need to plan, have it in mind, and think that in migrating data and handling data, it takes a lot of time. So don't disregard this. Don't only think about actually building the project, because the data is going to take you a lot of time. And the last one is the change management. We are not going to speak much about change management in this presentation because it's just a topic on its own. But really make sure that everybody knows why you are doing, what are the benefits they are going to get from the rollout, because people, they work on their own things, right? And on top of that, you are making them learn a new system, learn a new way of working. So it's really important they know why you do and when you are putting a bit of trouble into their day-to-day lives, okay?
This is yours.
Ah, that's mine too. So I still need this one. Sorry. Now we are going to explain a bit what are the different phases on this third strategy that we just discussed. So this is here just an example of what are the kind of things that you need to check when you actually check the as-is situation. You do this analysis of all the different processes. So this is still, it should cover all the different kind of streams and the scope of the project that you are going to actually try to roll out. Don't spend time on things that nobody cares about, right? So just focus on those processes that are going to be part of the rollout. It should involve as many markets as possible. We don't always have the time to speak to all the markets in the world, right? But try to cluster them into somehow markets that have some similarities. So maybe, I don't know, group together Korea with, I don't know, maybe Singapore, because maybe they have some similarities, or group together Morocco with Algeria. I don't know, this kind of intelligent things that will help you save time. It's still very high level, but it should also cover where are the kind of like differences that every market has, and it should also, it's still very, very high level for the time being. So you just identify where are the kind of things, the systems that you may need to migrate, etc. So then the next one is once you have all this information, it's a lot of ton of information, you take the time, you read through it, and you try to find what the blueprint should be, okay? The blueprint should be defining all the kind of like features per stream, per business stream, or per process that you are going to be covering. It's still high level, right? So you are not going down to the very, very details of, okay, maybe there is something here called event management. Okay, we need to have a tool to manage events, right? But then when you are going to actually roll out this, you still need to have the time to say, okay, what does it mean really rolling out events? What kind of features? What kind of like different process are we going to implement, right? But it will help you understand what are the kind of, yes, again, processes that you really will implement, okay? The second, another example we have here is once you have built the blueprint, what it's going to be, you also identified what are those specificities, the deviations that you are going to build for each country, okay? So it's still, again, high level, should be covering, is again, like in the global template, should be covering like all the markets, high level, and you really identify those that are only for one market, okay? Here we have like an example of how a roadmap for a global rollout may look like, okay? We have also different streams, but the important things from here is that you need to plan that before rolling out anywhere, you need to first build the global template. That's why we have like roughly there 3 months to actually build the global template. Once we have the global template, we may have to actually go and build the deviations, right? So maybe if you think smart, so the first market you choose might be one of those that do not have any deviations. So you go, implement it, just make sure that the global template works. And then the second one you choose maybe is one with 1 or 2 deviations, right? So you just need to, before rolling out to the next market, need to think that you need to plan time to define, to build the deviations, and then be able to roll them out. Okay, so now I pass it to Julio.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go a bit more into detail of the implementation phase. we're going to focus first on the blueprint because that's going to be the core of the project. And we're just showing a typical Salesforce architecture where we can see a few of the Salesforce clouds talking to each other. And then we see also external systems and there are integrations. So this is just to show that when it comes to implementation, we might end up with a number of projects depending on the different systems that you have to work on. So you might end up with different code repositories as well. So this is where your project management comes in. You would typically use, this is where we're going to start building our sprints. We're going to start writing our stories, and you can use any project management tool. Jira is very popular these days, so any of those tools will be very, very helpful. You should have, you should define the flow for your development, where you would have typically the different stages. So building stage, code review, another stage to UAT or QA, and then the release. So you should have a good process defined for your implementation. This is kind of the beginning of the project. So depending on the people that are working there, there's going to be a learning curve, but this is the core of your project, so it's going to give you the experience to then speed up the deviations. Again, you should use the typical development tools, so you should use version control to know that, just to have it all settled, and just to make sure that nobody, does things that some other people are doing. And you would use, a development environment. VS Code is the best practice for Salesforce projects, but anything that works for you is fine. And then also, depending on if you can afford it, having some DevOps for continuous integration and continuous development is also, it's a good thing. And when it comes for the deviations, you've done all your learning curve and you have something to work on top of. We can think of the deviations as plugins that you install on top of your blueprint. So typically, it would take less time to build a plugin, but don't underestimate that, because sometimes when we work on edge cases, we end up spending like a very long time to develop something that is nothing compared to the rest of the project. So again, as Laura said, it's very important to think smart ahead of the development stage, because that's one of the most common mistakes in development. You end up spending like 20% of your time in something that is going to be used not even 1% of the time by your end users. So again, you should be using the same tools, so your project management, and depending on the number of deviations, you will end up with a number of projects, and as Laura said, you have to space them in time so that your resources can be used in a smart way. But again, the same tooling should be used for the deviations. And we're going to talk about data migration, and this is one of the most from my point of view, is very important, because it gets underestimated very frequently, and I've seen projects, get extended just because we said, yeah, we have all the data. That's not enough. So something very important when it comes to data is, you need to identify what part of your data is going to be needs to be migrated before the implementation or after the implementation. But there's also data that has a different scope, and you need to have it migrated on a regular basis, so you need to schedule it while the project is already alive. So those are aspects that you need to take into account. You need to map your fields. We know that Salesforce have some standard fields, but the source of our data might have fields that we don't have, so you need to map and maybe create new fields. You need to also set some rules when you're going to migrate your data. You need to define the conversions that you're going to do. So if you have currency fields, so how are they going to be transferred from one system to the other? If you have date fields, if you have duplications, how you're going to identify them, what you're going to do with them. Data, so some of the data is, it should be kept private, so you need to anonymize some of it. So those type of things are really important when migrating data. And then it's the time to execute the migration. So you should be using an ETL tool. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load, which are the 3 operations that you do when you migrate data from source to destination. Again, choose the best, your preferred option. And this is where you're going to start knowing all of the conversions that you've designed, and you should be trying this in your sandboxes because it's the safest space to do it. And then it comes the time to test your data. So this is where your destination data is going to be the closest to your production environment. So again, here you're going to apply the things that you've learned through your testing, and this is you will find also unexpected things, but this is a safe environment to do it. And you should have a good QA team or people from the business to validate that all of your data has moved across accordingly, and they need to sign off just to just validate and confirm that everything has gone to plan through the testing
That's something that
state.
really make them sign up in a written form, because we know the business. Okay, so have them write like, yes, I'm okay. Okay.
Yeah, get the okay. Yes. And then when you migrate to prod, again, this is a step that sometimes gets underestimated because you've done everything in test and it's worked fine, and then you don't. You repeat the same steps, which is what you should be doing. You should be repeating the same steps, but don't forget that once you've done those steps, they need to be validated again. So again, your QA team should go and validate and confirm that everything has gone according to plan, because just repeating the steps doesn't always cover everything. And so we've done most of the technical parts now, and the project has gone live, and now we're almost at the end of the life of our project, and there's going to be a time when we are not going to be there anymore. So now we need to hand over all the knowledge that we've gained through the project, and we need to train the users. But in a global environment, your users are everywhere. Many markets, you can't go to every single market doing a tour. That would be wonderful. It would be, around the world training.
I did it once.
She's lucky. But typically, you would find people that would take ownership of the work that's been done, and it would be usually people that have had some involvement during the process of your project, and they are the people who need to keep all the knowledge, and they are the go-to people for the end users. So you would find system admins and developers in multiple locations, so that the knowledge is spread out as much as possible. Maybe 5 people, maybe 10 people, depending on the size of your project. But they will be the people maintaining your project moving on. So you need to train them, because they are going to have the responsibility of keeping your project successful. So they are on your side when you are not there, and the project has to live longer. And you don't just say goodbye one day and I forget about you. You just, in general, you keep like some time to support. So you have like a monthly follow-up meeting where you can get some feedback from the users, and where you can answer questions that maybe the trainers are not sure about. So there should be some contingency time to just say goodbye, but still be there for your customers. And then a summary.
Yes, thank you. So, okay, so we are getting to the end, and we just wanted to give you a bit more tips and tricks and important aspect of just global rollouts. Okay, the first one is like focus or identify the complex areas. Okay, as Julio said, if you forget about what is kind of difficult, maybe you will end up in a very bad position, getting delays or getting people very angry, right? So if you identify, you go into the complex areas, do them first if you can. Okay, it's like the most difficult, you do it, and then it's all like a kind of a walk, right? You are more relaxed. The second tip is like, you need to be your own marketing advisor, okay? You are going to say, this work we do, it's amazing, and we did really, really well. So make the first rollout, the first market be great, with no problems. Everybody should be happy and like very good with the deadlines, etc. So whether or not you are going to choose, like, I don't know, like a very easy market to tell your success story is up to you, but also you could say, look, you know, we go to the most complicated market, we go to China. And if we make it work in China, we can make it work all over the world, right? But when you do it the first, make sure it's good, because otherwise the other markets, when you try to go to them, it's like, that was a disaster. I don't want to go into there, right? So really make sure that the first one you do, it's amazing. The rest, they can be a bit delayed, but the first one should be amazing. The third tip is like localization is very important, right? So you may be ending choosing the first strategy we said that has 0 localization, but when you go, I don't know, you go to Kenya and they say, you know what, it doesn't work for us. We don't want to use it. Yeah, but we define a global template, you should use it. We don't, and we don't want to, right? You cannot force people to use a system, so that's why you really should plan that they will be, for sure, even if they're tiny, some localizations, even they are like stupid fields that you just have to create, do it, because it's very important for the users, okay? The fourth tip is communication. Again, we spoke about a bit before, change management, communication, trying to make the end users, the top leadership, everybody understand why you do it, what they're going to get out of that, like in the short term, the long term, the medium term, what kind of insights they are going to get, what are the reports, how you're going to help them do their daily jobs. It's very, very important, okay? And the last part is, Julio already spoke a bit about it, is just don't roll out and go. I mean, they are still there. They still need you. They have questions. They have not been there maybe since the beginning of the project, so you need to support them, and you also need to listen to them, because they are the people using the system. They have great ideas. And when you use a system and you know your job too on top of that, you are going to know how you can improve a system, right? So when you come from central teams or from consulting, you just grasp and try to, and think you understand what they do, but you don't really fully understand it. So listen to the people is very, very important. And that's about it. So if you have any questions, we are here, and we are going to be all over the day here also if you have some questions. But I think we have, what, more 5 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Be quick. Sure.
Yeah. I have one question about the team's organization.
Mm-hmm.
How do you organize your project team, building team, and rollout team? And how do you keep this connection between them? So
yeah, that's a difficult thing. So it really depends on the type of like rollout you're going to make, right? So what I've experienced in the past is you have one team just dedicated to build, right? So you have the delivery team, they're going to be building team with a project management that is going to be the link between the delivery team and the rollout team. And maybe what you need to do is to also split the rollout team into teams that they can go to, like, I don't know, like take care of a cluster of markets. So you take, I don't know, Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium that are mostly geographically together, and they just go getting first the analysis of stories, and they really fit the different like stories and features to the delivery team. But really think on a global rollout, the most important person there is really the project management, because it really makes a lot of, you know, very tiny details on when things are ready, when you can go, you need to plan travels or you know, or workshops. So for me, there should be like at least a delivery dedicated team and the rollout team, and there might be different rollout teams working in parallel. You don't have to go one rollout, the next rollout, you may also parallelize things and just say we do 3 markets, one after each week. Okay. There was another question?
Yeah. You said like sometimes you realize that you spend 20% of your time working on edge cases. What do you think you have to do instead of working on the edge cases?
I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice, right? So you just have to work on the edge cases. But if you plan them and identify them before, you can build your global template to be able to absorb those edge cases. So you don't really actually build the edge case until you have to. But if you are able to plan before, your architecture, your design is way better because you know what is to come, right? So that's actually my advice, to really kind of like identify them as soon as possible so you can really design better to hold them.
Yeah, try to minimize them thinking ahead. That's the target. I mean, it's not always possible or easy to do, but you should target to minimize those options by thinking ahead and planning ahead. So the definition stages and the as-is stages are important because they will make your time be better used, optimize your time.
All right, time's up. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
¿Le das el
Sí.